Here we are, man.
What's up?
Dude, we're halfway into the season. We're halfway into this thing. Hopefully you've enjoyed this journey. We've gone through a lot of different changes and changed a lot of different things from when we first started. But man, it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of learn and grow from this. There's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about today as well. Right. I think this kind of hits just a lot of, it's going to hit close to home. But before we do that, man, dude, how was your week? How were things with you this week?
Dude, it was great. I mean, we got a lot of really cool things going on this week. We'll might get into that and kind of build up some anticipation there. But it kept me busy. I know that it's kind of, me and you were kind of on our toes. All right. Had a lot of good conversations on future stuff. But personally, busy work week.
Yeah.
That's good. Gearing up. Got to go take another trip. So y'all probably going to see us next week on.
We're gonna do something different, something special,
a little different. Yeah,
something I think dads are kind of used to and kind of aware of. So I'm pretty excited about next week. So if you haven't been tuning in or been kind of tuning casually, trust me, next week is the week that you want to tune in.
It's gonna be a good one. And we had baseball game this weekend. I sent you some videos, man.
Yeah, dude.
Benjamin's, that guy's impressive. That dude's getting down and dirty.
He's always trying to be a little Carlos Correa, a little Jeremy Pena, he's ready. Hey, there we go. Jeremy Penny. Yeah. We could do that. So, but yeah, dude, that's awesome, man.
How about you?
Awesome. We went to the border. We went to Eagle Pass. I had a cousin get married. I also had to kind of go to Mexico and get some things checked out. So overall, dude, it was a great time. Nice. Hung out. Michelle had to stay home. Our little one, man, has been having this ear infection. He just can't kick. And so it's kind of been, but that's fatherhood. That's fatherhood. Yep. So tomorrow we go to the ENT and check and make sure that he's okay. But other than that, dude, we've been kind of grooving and rolling. So, dude, let's just kind of jump into this thing if you're ready.
Absolutely.
So, what's our topic for today?
Our topic is finding your niche.
Finding your niche. We've also kind of had this little tagline of fighting complacency.
Yep.
I think this one's big. I think as I've kind of talk to men, and whether it be premarital counseling is typically where I do it the most. If you don't know what premarital counseling is, hopefully it's pretty self-explanatory. It's when we kind of, me and my wife will sit down with a couple as they're preparing for marriage, just to kind of get them ready, gear them up, because as much as it's like, oh, we know each other, we love each other, we kind of know everything, we know how many kids we want to have and all that. Like, fam, like I love you, but you have no idea what you're about to what you're about to get yourself into, right? And I love married life. I recommend it for everybody. I think it's awesome. It's amazing. But at the same time, it's hard. It's difficult. So doing this and talking with people, one of the things that I get pretty passionate is when I talk to the guys, I really talk about that we typically, men, kind of have a poison of choice, a sin of choice. Which is typically complacency. We talk about like the lording leader, which Hollywood typically, when they display men, they love to show probably this one more than the other one. They do show the other one, but they typically show this one more. It's the kind of the macho, the guy who slaps around his wife and his kids to get what he wants, who yells and screams, and it's a guy who typically uses his power and strength and force to get things done.
Sure.
The one that I see way more often, that Hollywood does portray, but again, not as often, is the passive leader. The not passive, non-leader, if you will. The guy who just, the guy who comes home, cracks open the beer, and sits down and watches sports, his shows, watches whatever until 11 o'clock at night. He falls asleep there. Kids are failing in school, they're very absent in their kids' lives.
Right.
Wife is in a loveless marriage. It's the guy who does nothing, right? It's the guy who falls into just kind of with the status quo. And you see that way more often. Now, of course, the extreme, what you see in TV, is the guy who only does that and passes out. But I think you see this all the time. Maybe not that extreme, but you see this all the time where you have an individual who's kind of happy of where he's at. He's very complacent.
Right.
He thinks everything's okay. Everything's fine. He forgets that father time is against him.
Sure.
He forgets that his kids are growing up. He forgets that his wife is continually changing and she's growing as an individual and as a person. He's not trying to pursue the marriage like he did when he was dating, right? It's a person who's just okay with the status quo. He's okay where he's at. He makes enough money So he's not feeling like he has to grind to get that job that, he fought so hard to get.
Sure.
It's the guy who, you know, he's happy with his marriage, right? He's happy with his house. He's happy where he's at. But in reality, like deep down inside, it's almost like everybody around him is like, yo, this dude is just like not here.
Right.
Right? He's like missing. He's absent. I think that's a big problem. And you see this all the time with men, especially in their marriages, especially in their relationships.
Routine.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. I know this kind of wasn't on like our list here or our outline, but I just thought about this and you saying this. Yeah. How would you, depict the difference in complacency and contentness?
Yeah. I think, like I mentioned, Father Time is always ticking.
Right.
Father Time ain't going to stop for nobody. Complacency is like, well, it is what it is.
Right.
And does nothing about it. Right?
Right.
Complacency, in my opinion, is a dude that is not going to change the situation around him, whether for good or for bad.
Right.
I think contentment is a person who understands that life is always changing.
Sure.
Life is not stopping, right? And is willing to get out of his routine to do the things that he has to do.
Sure.
Not that the complacent person doesn't. The complacent person will go to work, right?
Right.
But
nothing extra.
But exactly. Won't do anything extra, right? Like,
gotcha.
You know what? My kids are in T-ball. Instead of saying, hey, can I coach? Can I be a part? Can I get involved? Right. They won't do that. The complacent person won't be the one who's doing the date nights with his wife.
It's boring.
It's boring. Or you know what? She loves me. I love her. We're okay. I don't have to communicate that. I don't have to do something special. Sure. I don't have to do the roses. I don't have to do the chocolates. I don't have to do anything like that. You know what? We're good.
Right.
Right. It's hey, my kids are fine. My kids love me. But they never invest the time in their kids.
Sure.
They're not making, probably another word that just kind of came to mind as I was just talking, is investment.
Yeah.
That person who's complacent will not invest into his relationships, will not invest into his home, will not invest into different aspects, whether it even be his job, right? Or investing things to kind of continue to get things moving and going. The complacent person is happy where they're at. They'll do the bare minimum at their job, right? They'll do their bare minimum with their family. They'll do the bare minimum with their friendships. They'll just continue on doing the status quo. And then what ends up happening is when they finally pick up their head, is like, really, this is it? This is what I was striving for. My kids hate me. My wife wants a divorce.
Right.
My job's gonna fire me anytime.
Pulling your head out of the sand
and it's just like realize, man, I've completely messed up.
Do you think like the key to, or like a step in getting out of that would be maybe like you talk about investing, maybe investing in yourself?
Yeah. I mean,
I know we talked about that a little last week, kind of connecting that about, having that self-confidence and maybe that might be investing in yourself to be able to invest in everything else.
Yeah. So one of the articles I sent you over, man, it was a really good article. I think one of the ways to do that is, one, you got to get out of your bubble.
That's good.
And I think when you get out of your bubble, then you start realizing where's that. I think here's another hot take, kind of continuing from yesterday. I think those dudes that were at the marriage conference that were wearing basketball shorts and t-shirts and not dressing up for their wives, things like that, I would put money on it, are probably in complacent marriages.
That's a fair assessment.
I think they're wives and they're there because things are not 100%. And again, no one really wants to go to a marriage conference because their marriage is wonderful and beautiful and things like that. Like, we always want to get better, or we should. Let me put it like that. We should be wanting to improve our marriages, improve our relationships.
Self-reflection, man.
Absolutely. But these guys that are more likely there in basketball shorts and things like that have no self-awareness.
Right.
No idea what's going on, right? No idea. And so they're going there because their wives more likely like, yo, we got to try this thing out.
Sure. We
got to try something to get things going. We got to try some things like doing that. And they've not looked in the mirror and say, yo, like, why am I going to this thing in basketball shorts and t-shirt?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I not trying a little bit harder?
Yeah.
Why am I not? Like, you have to kind of get out of your bubble and realize and look around saying, you know what? Things got to get different. Things got to be different.
Right.
Kind
of like that guy that just first thing came to my mind, you're looking at your wife, and I don't know about you, but when I do, I look at my wife like, man, I'm married up, bro.
Yeah.
Like, what's a girl, like good looking girl like you doing with a good, like a dude like me, right?
Yeah.
But I think that in that same like vein, you want to try to do what you can to make sure your partner feels that way too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like I want Michelle to be able to look at me and say and be proud of me.
Right.
I know you probably want the same thing with your wife as well.
Yeah.
Like you want your wife to look at you and say, hey, I'm proud of this dude.
Right.
Right. And I think there's some guys that are just okay with not
Yeah.
having that. But probably because they probably don't feel that within themselves.
Right.
And I think the sad part is like their kids are probably the ones that are suffering the most. Right. They got their shows, they got their TikToks they got to watch, they got their time on their phone, and their kids, man, are just miserable.
Right.
Their kids, man, haven't had that fatherly interaction. And I'm saying this because I spent the past 15 plus years in college and young adult ministry.
Right.
And the amount of people that have daddy issues, that have their fathers in their lives, is crazy.
Yeah.
Like the ones that you quickly know, like, oh, you've had a dad in your life. You quickly know, all right, off the back, you've had a dad in your life. Your dad has loved you and has been in your life and invested in you. And there's some that I meet and I'm like, yo, you don't have a dad in your life. And then you're like, realize, oh no, you have. Your dad was just complacent. Your dad hasn't cared. Your dad hasn't been involved. And I think for a lot of people, they just complacent. They see that kid and they still see that 2-year-old that from time to time I can just pick up, throw up, and they're happy and they believe you hung the moon.
Sure.
But in reality, that kid is no longer that 2-year-old.
Yeah.
The kid now sees all your mess ups, your screw ups, and how you've not invested. Man, and that scares the living mess out of me.
Right.
Like, I don't want my kids to ever believe that I can't hang the moon.
Right.
And I know one day they're going to realize, like, yo, my dad's screw up. But I want that to be very, very minimal. I want them to say, hey, I know my dad's a screw up, but he's always been there.
Yeah.
My dad has been involved in my life. My dad has cared for me. My dad's invested in me. My dad has loved me. And my dad has done everything to sacrifice to be in my life and to be invested in my life.
Right.
And I think that word that you used earlier, investment, I think that's the key word.
Right.
To get out of complacency, you have to invest in relationships, invest your time into better things. Like, let's be real. Like, man, you love TV. I love TV.
Right.
Right. But at the end of the day, like I'm going to still live if I don't watch that show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I haven't watched Ted Lasso season 3 yet. Like, part of it. Yeah. Part of it, like, also, I'm using that as an example. Part of it, I'm waiting for it to all be done so I can kind of kill it all at one time, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just gonna pick on that for example. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not dying that I haven't watched the last episode, Ted Lasso. Like, it's not the end of the world, right? I'd rather be there for my daughter and be there and be her coach at the softball game, right? I'd rather be invested in her life that way than not.
Yeah.
Right? Than watch the show. I love sports, man. You love sports, but I'm telling you, if my kid is needing help with homework, I mean, I may have ESPN on my phone and just be kind of doing this number, but I'm gonna be very invested in the life of my daughter because I care about her. I care about my son. I want him to know that his dad loves him and cares for him. I want to invest in my wife. I want to invest a Friday night with her. Complacency, just you completely forget about that. It really becomes about you.
Yeah, and I think that's going to hit home for a lot of people, I feel like. And I feel like, sometimes, just sitting back here, I've talked to you about kind of, where I've struggled with this and just, for those you don't know, like, I'm a very passionate person. Like, I get ideas and stuff in my head. I'm ADHD, I say all the time, so my mind's going 1,000 miles an hour with 1,000 thoughts. And when I get invested in something, like I'm all in like 150%. And that has definitely, like, I've had to learn in a lot of prayer and trying to, really pull that in and make sure that I'm giving an equal amount of time to what's important first.
Yeah.
And then what's fun and unimportant. And for me, like, that was a big issue. And we talked on one of the podcasts, I think it was the second one, with the balance. And I got real big into streaming, like in COVID, man. Like, we were balling, me and my boys. Like, we were making money off of it. Like, we had organization. Like, it was great. But like with that, like, I let it go too far. And that's a regret of mine that I've had to really deal with, ask for forgiveness of, because it did put a wedge between me and my wife. And even though my son doesn't, Benjamin at the time was young, not probably never remember that. But for me, like, I feel like I took something away from him, right?
Man.
And I think that's different when it's something like that where he can't really communicate that at the age he was around like 2.5, but like deep down,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I know.
Yeah.
And that's something that's like, I don't want to get in that place again. Like, yeah, I know, like, I got stuff that I'm working on, on the side, and I put a lot of time into, but like, I feel like I've began to, in maturing in that area, realize how strategically you can fit it in, right?
Yeah.
There's a way to do it.
Absolutely.
There's a way to do all of these things to be able to make it fit within what is not what's important first, and then secondly, what is fun and what is can be put in the back burner.
Absolutely.
And I think that in doing all of those things, right, it makes for a healthier environment in a place to where it's all cohesive.
Yeah. I think a skill that I think most people lack, and I think fathers lack as well, man, is self-assessment, evaluating yourself. Like, where am I? How am I doing? And am I good? I think you sound like you've been through that journey already, and you've realized that about yourself, and that plays a very important part of your life. I think many cats don't do that.
Yeah.
And they're literally on the verge of losing their marriages. Maybe they've already lost their marriages because of that.
I mean,
I
get I mean, as I says, I just like, talking about it, man, like it kind of puts me back in that place. And I get almost like emotional just thinking about it. I mean, and let me plead with all you dads out there, man. Like, this is you. Like, and maybe like you're in a place where you haven't been able to really put words with or explain maybe what you think you've been going through or feeling like. Man, take some assessment.
Yeah.
Take a, what do you call do a roll call with yourself.
Yeah.
And kind of figure out like where you're at, man. Cause last thing I want, man, is my son looking back and going like, where were you?
Yeah. I mean, I think the sad reality is like you got a lot of cats, man, that are probably depressed.
Yeah.
Right. And again, we were talking about that in our vulnerability, man. You're probably dealing with depression, man, and you just don't know it. That's where, again, we're kind of circling back to some of these themes, man, is like, you probably need to go ahead and find you a group, or something I forgot to mention the other day is like counseling. Like, pay the $25 copay and go get you a counselor. Go sit down. And man, there's something freeing, because I've done it. There's something freeing when you talk to a complete stranger who don't know you and honestly probably does not care about you, other than the fact that you're paying them this little copay, right, and they're charging your insurance. But they're gonna go ahead and because of that, they're gonna be brutally honest and truthful and just let you know, man, like, this is where you've kind of been walking in your crap. And this is where you got to change. And this is where you got to do some things different. Like, that is so important and freeing. And to have that in your life, to hear that, like, this is where you're off. Like, this is where you're not right. And like, I think that's the big kind of part of fighting complacency is like, you're investing, like you said, investing in yourself some.
Yeah.
We're investing in ourselves to say, okay, where am I at? What am I doing? Am I happy? Am I not happy?
Right.
What are the things that I can do to begin to change? What are some of the things that I can do to begin to make myself a better man? Right? Like, you want to invest in yourself. Keep learning. Keep pushing. Keep striving. Right? I think the sin, man, like, I don't know, I'm going to get a little biblical here. Remember, Adam's first sin is that he became complacent.
Yeah.
Right? He became passive instead of active.
Yeah.
We as men, like, we got to move towards that. We got to move towards activity. We got to move away from passivity. And I think there's this outcrying young men right now, because one, man, I shared this quote with you in our notes, man, because I think many of y'all have probably heard this quote, but I think it's a very powerful quote, right? But hard times create strong men, right? Strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times.
Right.
And I think we've come out of this we've come out of this time that was a good time, but we're now starting to see uprisings in all these different places. We're starting to see all these different things happen worldwide. And we're starting to see this issue with men. We're starting to see some men that are craving and desiring something more. This is why, again, people may hate this man, right? People may hate Jordan Peterson, right? Like we drop something, someone said, "Oh, I'm not going to go see Jordan Peterson."
It is crazy,
which again
how
is like
easily people are triggered
by
some of these guys.
Absolutely,
Just say their name.
They said, "Oh, just Jordan Peterson." And when I'm like, "I'd rather go see a counselor,"
name.
I'd rather see a counselor. I'm like, "Wait a minute, let's back up." You know, he was a counselor, right? Like he was a counselor,
right?
So don't see him, but see him. Okay.
What,
anywho,
what does that mean? Cultural confusion.
Yeah, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. But like guys like Jordan Peterson, guys like Joe Rogan, some I'm trying to think of like what's his name,
Shapiro,
like some of these guys that are Mount Walsh. Like some people don't like these guys, right? But some of these guys are doing this one thing that I think they're doing real. They're rallying men to become men,
right?
Like, again, I really don't like him. I don't stand biblically for anything that he does. Right. I'm not for this guy, but Andrew Tate. Like, I
it's
really...
hot topic. I agree with you.
I do not stand. I do not advocate, but I see why men are drawn to him because he's telling men to grow up and become men.
And okay, I'm glad you said that because I want to piggyback that with saying this. You know, one thing that I feel like that for me, I've worked really hard on as well, and I hope you see that because I know that when I say this, you're gonna go, yeah, I hear you say that a lot.
Yeah.
But like knowing yourself, right? You need to know yourself.
Yeah.
I think as a man, when you begin to, you know, we talk about vulnerability, we talked about understanding your emotions, being able to really, you know, communicate how you're feeling, and I think that you know the next step in that is being able to take all that together, know yourself, right, so that you can self-assess. Right? Because it's a process. But being able, when you know yourself, that means you know what you believe. Right?
Yeah.
And in doing that, you're able to hear things from guys like an Andrew Tate and kind of sift through the BS, if you will, right? To where you kind of go through that and go, okay, like, I don't stand with like what you believe in a lot of stuff, but like what you're saying here and kind of the underlying reasoning behind it, okay, like that's good. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or just listen to BadDadPod podcast and we'll help you become a man, right? Now, get it from two dads. We'll be your dads. Like, I think that's the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Like, but I think that's a good word, man. Because like the truth is, like, I'm going to say some things that some of y'all guys are listening and are not going to agree with.
Right.
And that's totally fine.
Right.
But I think if you know yourself, you know where you're at,
and
you know where to navigate, and you have a good group around you, and you've invested in yourself, invested in your people. Like, yo, you can listen to something that you may not agree with and say, you know what, I can take the good and throw away the bad.
And it's the same way with, you know, I'm not gonna say religion because I freaking hate that word. Yeah. But same thing being a Christian, right? Right. And having a relationship with the Lord, it's what they always say. Go read it for yourself. Do your own study. It's the same thing. So that whenever you do come against it, like you're not taking other people's like what's the word I'm looking for, convictions and allowing them to project that on you whenever you have, you know, you've read it and you've done your study on it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the truth is, like, as I was researching for this, you know, I came across an article that was like, man, just kind of, oof, like, okay, like, all right. But they're talking about like why, you know, one of the reasons why, okay, why do men typically fall into complacency? Why do we fall into complacency as human beings? Again, maybe you're not a man, maybe you're a woman listening or things like that. But why do we as human beings just fall into complacency? And this article talked about a couple of reasons why, like, obviously they start off with a really excellent quote that I just got to read from Pat Riley, right? He's an NBA coach, you know, the president of the Miami Heat, right? He says complacency is the last hurdle standing between any team and its potential greatness. It's like, dang. And I think that's the truth for everybody. Good. That's truth for everybody.
Yeah.
You want to be a great dad? Yo, complacency is what you got to come. You want to be a great husband? You know, great businessman? Yep. You want to be a great student? Like wherever you're at listening to the BadDadPod, like if you want to get to that level of level of greatness, you got to overcome that complacency.
Right.
But they talk about like foregoing a moment of insight. Like there's a moment that you could have got some insight about yourself.
Yeah.
Done some self-evaluation and you just like say, you know what?
Yeah.
But this is the one that kind of hurt me a little bit. Maintaining a sense of overconfidence. Like that one kind of struck home because like I can 10 times think like I'm little. I walk around sometimes like thinking that my poop don't stink.
Yeah.
I sometimes am a little too overconfident in my talents and abilities. Like I know that I've been wired by God to do certain things that I know I can do really, really well. And sometimes I rely on that.
I can understand.
And instead of relying on help of people, instead of reaching out to some folks. Instead of, maybe saying, you know what, that may have worked at this time, but may not work now.
Right.
I walk into my ideas are better than your ideas.
Right.
I walk in with this overconfidence. And many times, man, it slaps me in the face.
Yeah.
Or instead of like doing something fresh or doing something new, I'm doing the same old. And I think that's so many times a lot of guys do that, especially like on date nights. Oh, we're doing the same old.
Sure.
Man, if I take her out here, give her a little drink here, we do a little dance there. Well, maybe I can get on top of her and do a little something there, and then they call it, and then I'm gonna call it a night, right?
Yeah.
But instead of saying, what I need to do to begin to pursue her heart,
right?
Like what I need to do to like pursue her and who she is as a person. And maybe the same old ain't the thing that she needs. Maybe she just needs me to go ahead and be the shoulder she can cry on.
Right.
Like,
no,
I think the overconfidence, man, like is a big maintainer of why we can walk into complacency. The other ones, man, I think are really great. Like having a false sense of reality. Like you believe everything's okay. My kids love me. My wife loves me. Everybody loves me. So why do I need to invest? Why do I need to do anything? Why do I have to I can just continue doing what I do.
Right.
And things were going great. And I think, man, that's another big one. I think it has a lot tied with the other one. And then last one, the tendency to make excuses. Yeah. We make a lot of excuses, but I think they're all tied into that overconfidence one.
Would you say excuses are a pet peeve of yours?
I hate excuses.
I hate excuses.
But I tend to find myself making them a lot.
Yeah, but also too, I think like what I'm going to talk specifically in is like, in my job, like, we've talked, like, I do sales. And so, doing sales, there's a kind of an order of business. You have your inside sales, the dynamic between inside sales, outside sales, right? And so forth. But, there were times, like, I can remember, like, when I was in inside sales and stuff where I might send something, like a quote out, right? And then I have this outside guy kind of, running his mouth to my boss, oh, like they never got the quote or this, that, and the other, instead of coming to me and talking about it. And I'm like, no, dude, like I sent it. And like the excuses, like he never followed up on it. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so instead, like they project that, right? So like that's one thing that really kind of stuck with me. So there's been times already, like in since I've been an outside, where like it was on me, like why something didn't get taken care of, like in a similar instance. And I just, we're sitting in a meeting, got owner sitting across me, like, man, no, like that's on me. That's on me. Like, I don't want to be that person that, it comes down to it. And because I think when you become the excuse person, you also become the person that can't be relied on.
That's it. I mean, that's it. I think that's absolutely it.
Yeah.
No one can rely on you.
No.
If you always have an excuse why you can't play with your kids, if you always have an excuse why you can't do date nights, you always have an excuse why you can't hang out with the boys, if you always have an excuse of why you can't serve at church, if you always have an excuse of why you can't stay an extra 15 minutes at work, if you always have an excuse, man, no one's going to rely on you.
Failing,
and that's good.
Failing and being unreliable are two completely different things. And
Absolutely.
I think that needs to be understood. If you fail, that does not mean that you made an excuse for that failure.
Absolutely.
But if you're making an excuse for that failure, you are
Absolutely.
Unreliable.
Like, I think it's an important thing that sometimes some of us got to take some risks.
Yeah.
Take some freaking risks, man. Like, it doesn't, like, and here's the thing, it doesn't have to be a grand, huge, humongous risk.
Right.
Right? But just take a small risk.
Would you say that a risk is typically stepping outside of your comfort zone in some way?
Yeah.
I would think that, again, how big or small that is, if you have a comfort zone, like you said, getting outside of your bubble.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a risk.
Yeah, because I think complacency definitely comes from this place of comfort.
Right.
And you got to get out of that comfort zone to achieve anything great. Like, if you're over here and your only friends are Sly and Tyler on the BadDadPod, hey, we love you. We're glad that you're where you're.
We appreciate your friendship.
Absolutely, we're glad that we're your only friends. You listen, but maybe you need to actually step out and make like physical friends.
And Sly, there's a really easy way you can do that. There is there's a link below.
Really? Where?
To our Discord community.
That's where it leads us to?
That's where it leads us to.
Oh, wow.
The Bad Dad Man Cave.
Awesome.
You can find great things like Sly Eats, like Binge It, where if you're interested in TV shows and how good they may or may not be, so you don't waste your time.
Can I make friends there?
You can make friends there.
Absolutely.
Hey, are you going through something? Do you need some real talk? Guess what? We got a spot for you.
Absolutely. But what if I like some sports?
Well, if you have some sports, we do have something really cool that we're going to be doing.
Should we save that for a little here in a little bit?
And we're going to save that for a little bit later.
Okay. But yeah, take a risk. Take a risk. I think it's so important for guys to get out of the comfort zone, to take a risk. I mean, I texted you this week of just, man, I took the risk of saying, hey, I've realized I've gotten complacency in some areas.
Yeah.
And so I just texted Tyler this week. And I was like, yo, man, like I'm fat. Like I'm not happy where I'm at physically. Right. And like, yo, like I know as I get older, like the risk of very serious diseases like diabetes and cancer and things like that happen when you're overweight. So I just texted this man. I said, yo, bro, like I need to start working out. I need to start losing weight.
Right. And
you were like, yo, I'm right there with you. And let's do this together. Like that's a small risk. Like those are risks that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be like, I don't know what kind of risk. Like I'm gonna go, face to face with my boss and demand a raise and tell him how bad he's been running the business and let me run the bit. Like we're not saying something.
Here's a great example of a risk too. Just thinking about it, I'm going to harken it. I don't know why I said that, but like kind of point it back into like our community.
Yeah.
We had one of our members, one of our kind of main like team guys, and first time posted in Real Talk, and just some really good thoughts on marriage and just a perspective that I never even really thought about. It's just, I mean, not that I guess never thought about, but just never something I really kind of processed fully. It was just kind of, you think you don't really hear about that side of it. And what was really interesting, he's not even married yet. And, I talked to him and I texted him. I was like, man, like great article, dude. And I say our forum post, because that's how our community set up is forum post. And he was like, thanks, man. It's like kind of outside of my comfort zone. That's where his exact words. And I was like, dude, that's great. That's what we wanted. That's what I want to see. I want to see, our community, right? And our you bad dads out there and you other guys and guys and girls and cool cats or whatever out here that are listening, hopefully we can help you guys kind of give a little nudge into that realm of getting outside your comfort zone.
Yeah. And I think again we're gonna harp on this and we'll continue to ring that bell. We're gonna bang that drum.
Yep.
Dads matter.
Dads too.
Dads are really important. Dads matter, and they don't need the dad that's just laying on the couch, scratching his belly, watching a guy the same age, destroying the basketball court, right? They probably, the dads need somebody to come in and hang out with them, right? Maybe bring them alongside and show them like, yo, like, look what he did right there. That's a little step back. Maybe they get some interest in things like that. I'm telling you, like, for example, the World Series, right? I'm a big Stros fan. I love the Stros. That's my team. I'll rep them, right? Bury me in the H, like that. That's like that's me, right? During the World Series, right? Like I get into it. I brought my kids along to do that. Didn't want them to just, I didn't want to, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I didn't want to stop watching baseball. No, don't get me wrong. My kids need something. Okay, cool. But I was doing the middle of bath time. I turned up the volume super loud. We're hearing it as I'm giving baths. I'm wiping off that dirt, right? Like we're watching it together. We're yelling and screaming, saying, "Hey, this is our team." I remember one time the Phillies hit a homer and he started jumping, started cheering. I'm like, "Baby, no, no, that's the wrong time. Like you need to cry now, not cheer." But that was a process and that was something fun that we got to do. Like I'm not saying you gotta quit all your stuff. Maybe there's some shows you probably shouldn't watch with your kids, right? But maybe there's some other things that you can do with your kids, right? Maybe there's some things you can bring them along, right? If you're like extreme, like, I don't know, workout, bring your kids. Like I have a buddy, he's a triathlete. He's a big triathlete and stuff like that. His kid now is interested in doing all that stuff. That's cool. So he takes his kids to go jogging with them, to go swimming with them. Like typically your kids will be interested in things that you're interested in. Yeah.
Benjamin's gotten into cooking because he sees dad in there, cooking and mom in there cooking and now he run up there, but talking about doing with Issa with baseball. Benjamin knows the Jets chant.
There you go, man.
This season. So, just really proud of that.
Right? Yeah. And so those are fun things, man. And so like this stuff can be fun. This stuff can be great. Like, trust me, like, I get it. Some guys want to be silent and quiet. Like make you feel like it's like golf. Like no one got to be quiet. Like when Jordan's at the plate, but at the same time, like make it fun, make it interactive with your kids. Don't fall in, come to listen to things like bad dad. Like we're going to try to give out some advice and try to help with some of these things. And not that we're perfect, we got it all together. And there's so many resources. We live in the day and age. Like if you don't know, like Google it. Like Google, like one of my favorite videos of all time is like Gary Vee. Someone asked him for some advice and is like, okay, like I want to know how to do this and do this. And it's like, okay, cool. I got an excellent resource for you. Are you ready for it? Like ready. Like this is awesome. It's right. All right. It's an awesome website. It will help you with everything. It's like, okay, I'm ready. It's like, are you ready? It's like, okay, I'm ready. Okay, cool. G-O-O. Like, then that's it. Like the truth is, if you're struggling, like we live in the day and age, there's so many resources that you can figure it out. I think for us as well, though, we always like talk about the how again, because I'm passionate about the how. So I don't know, Tyler, is like, how did you go in your seasons of complacency? What are some things that you began to do to begin to help you get out of it?
I think one of the main things was accepting that I was not perfect in that I was not okay. And because the whole saying, hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
Like I think that can be related in a lot of things. I think that again, for me specifically in that time, like I was kind of hiding from some emotion, that I didn't want to deal with, because that meant hard conversations, and that meant really having to like put in some effort and some investment. And I just didn't want to deal with that. And you know what I did? Made excuses. And so, eventually you got to you have to make a decision. And I think that it's a decision on man up, shut up.
That's good. That's really, really good.
So
you got to look at that man in the mirror.
Yeah.
And tell him, yo, man, it's time to change.
Yeah.
It's time to change. Have a hard conversation with yourself. Like, again, I'm type A, like we've talked about before. Me, man, I'm all down with lists. Like when I'm not happy, I'll sit down, man. I'll start making a list. Like, what are some things I'm not happy with? Okay, my weight. All right, what's some other things I'm not happy? Man, you know what? Like the way I've been interaction with the kids have probably not been the healthiest, right? Like, my date. Like, I'll just start writing stuff down,
right,
and start creating a list, because for me, that's how I want to start tackling things.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's different. Some guys are just sharp and could just do it in the brain and things like that. But I start writing things down so I can realize, okay, this is where I need to start tackling. Or if I can kind of group things together and saying, okay, this is an area I can start working on, right? I think it's so important, though, regardless. I think we both hearing the same thing, is like, you got to know yourself.
Yeah.
Got to do the hard work and get to know yourself.
Right.
Again, if you need a counselor, seek a counselor out. You need some guys in your life, join the Discord group, right?
Yeah.
And we'd love to try to help you. Like, not that we can do that, but we were going to try to help you, man. But become real and be all open and honest. Get you a good trusted group of people and say, okay, I got to get to know myself. But at the end of the day, it's going to be you, because you can always lie, you can always fib, you can always do whatever to kind of get the results that you want.
No counselor can break through that either, guys.
No.
So don't think, again, like you're talking about doing counseling and even like sitting down with a good group. You got to remember, like that will take you so far, in the sense of, if you're not being honest with yourself first and knowing yourself to let those walls down, you're really just hanging out with somebody and then just doing whatever the heck you want.
Yep. Absolutely.
So let me ask you this. I'm interested to know, and I'll tell you kind of how I see from my perspective. But whenever you are, when you feel like that you aren't being complacent versus when you are, how does your what does that look like? And I guess to better explain it, I'll say for me, I feel like when I am complacent, that and this may be contradictory to the story, but you'll understand when I say it, I'm not as creative. Like I noticed, like I write music, as you know, and I'm not writing. So that's one thing. I'm not coming up like I'm idea guy, like spitting just a machine of ideas that are 80-90% bad, but they're there, right? And anyway, in saying all of that, I don't really care. Like the future 5 year down the line, which is how my brain in its full capacity is wired, isn't looking at that outlet. Yeah. It's just kind of whatever. Yeah. And when I'm whatever, I'm complacent, because I'm not thinking about how what I'm doing right now can be affecting that 5 year. Yeah. So I'm just curious for you, how
for me, man, I think the biggest indicator that tells me when I become complacent is when I get that notification on Sundays. Mine's is set up on Sundays of screen time.
Really? Okay.
How has my screen time been?
Okay.
I mean, if I'm looking at high hours, right? now don't get me wrong, I text sometime for my job, right?
Right.
And I do some stuff, social media stuff, and things like that. But like I typically know, like, that should be like an hour or two. But when I'm looking at like high hours, because I'm just consuming content like that, it's not going anywhere, not
Right.
moving. Again, maybe it's that creative thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I've told you, like my reason I wanted to do Bad Dad is because like I needed a creative outlet, right? But
Right.
like I've realized, like when I just kind of just consume,
Mm-hmm.
consume and consume and consume and consume and consume, and it doesn't go anywhere else with that.
Right.
Like it doesn't lead me to a more creative person, doesn't lead me to a more interesting person to have a conversation with. It just leads me to just really just veg out.
You're a content zombie.
Yeah, basically, dude, like I know for a fact that this is not helping.
Right.
That I've landed in complacency.
Right.
So I have to fight, man. And again, I'm a guy who likes to read books, right? If I'm not moving towards like reading books, if I'm not looking at investing into friendships and relationships,
Right.
those are telltale signs. If I'm
Yeah.
investing more time on my phone than investing with people, if I'm investing
Right.
more time in just knowing useless facts instead of maybe reading a book that may help me become a better father or a
Right.
better minister or whatever, like if I'm not doing those things, like we talked about in the very beginning, bringing it back for, if I'm not doing things to invest in myself and the relationships around me, I quickly tell. And the best indicator for me is my phone. My phone will tell me.
I like what you said there. That's really good. Talking about, kind of investing in friendships and things like that. I love that because that's kind of how I feel with, kind of better explaining, when I was doing all this streaming and all this stuff like that, and just I wasn't mentally in the right spot or whatever. What I think that separates from what we're doing now, some of the ventures we're working on, is it was sitting down. It was talking to like the same 2-3 people,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And where I think there's a time and a place, like we've said here before, like doing that in moderation and being able to know how to strategically have time to do that where you're not taken away from anything is great. And I think it's a good thing. But when you're constantly around people, again, that are also complacent and you're filling your time there versus like what we're doing now is you got some motivation, right?
Yeah,
you got some drive and you're pushing me. I'm pushing you. We're trying to grow and we don't, we want this thing to be as big as we can possibly take.
And when guys don't have that grind, they will hold you back. They'll criticize you. They'll make fun of you. They'll say, oh, you're going to really do, like they're the ones who don't want to see that of you. They may say that you're friends and they want to see that, but in reality, they don't.
Yeah, because that friendship's not benefiting you.
No.
You're not growing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So I think once you can kind of get out of complacency, I think then the next step is then really you start finding your niche.
Yeah.
Right. Then you start kind of realizing, because then you know yourself.
Right.
You've done the homework. You realize, okay, this is where I'm at. You're willing to take more risks. Right. You begin to identify like what are the things that I'm interested in, the things that I want to do. And again, we're talking about fighting complacency, one for the family life, but I think also in things that you're interested in. Right. Yeah. Again, that's the idea of finding your niche.
Right.
You can't do it when you're complacent.
No.
Right. At that point, it just becomes a useless hobby that you're spending time. But when you're willing to fight and willing to see things and you're willing to find that balance and do things like that, you can totally find that niche. So I think you've kind of found your niche here in the past kind of couple of past 2 months, man. Want to kind of walk us through that journey and kind of talk about it a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we've been doing BadDadPod and like we've said in the very beginning, like this is something that I've had this on my heart. And even before that, like we talked about it, having, Couch Coach was something that I had even before any of the dad squad names, that because I am at the heart of it. Like you asked me, like, Tyler, what could you do for the rest of your life and be happy with as a job and just make enough to be able to live how, comfortably or whatever? It'd be doing something involving sports. I love it. I can talking about like going in as, into like the statistics, right? Like stuff like that. Like that gets me jacked up. Right? Like explaining why you would take this guy over another guy in like an NFL draft. Like that gets me jacked up, man. So in all that same vein, we love our listeners and, we really do listen to the feedback. And I think that we try to take that as hard as much as we can to still stay on track with what we feel like that we're needing to take this thing for, because we're in it for the long haul. It's one thing that Sly like teaches me a lot about is you gotta walk for you gotta crawl for you can walk. And it's hard for me to do that because I'm 1,000 miles an hour. But, we feel like we have people that want more sports content, but we also have people that we know that sports might not be your thing. So our solution in that is we are going to be launching Athletically Declined Sports. And that's going to be the sports side of what we do. And we have about 10 creators that are heading up different sports. And they have, again, not necessarily like boxing them off to it, but that's kind of their specialty. Yeah. And we've got about four shows, specific shows that we've got really, really cool logos and names to it, man. We've been getting really jacked up.
Can I listen if I'm athletically inclined?
You can.
That's
you
good
can.
to know.
If you're athletically inclined, you definitely can.
It's for everybody.
But let me tell you something. All of us, and me, in my opinion, if you're not a professional athlete, you probably aren't athletically as inclined as you think.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's been fun to kind of see your journey. I think some of the things that we talked about, like taking risks and stuff like that, like the conversations we had, like some of this stuff isn't easy. Some of this stuff, we had a couple conversations and they were bad, but they weren't the most pleasant conversations, right? Like when we talked about like launching this pod to the conversations of moving towards athletic decline, like two vastly really different conversations, but they both produce really good results, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is that sometimes some of these things to get to your niche, to get to the thing that you feel passionate about,
right?
That you feel like, man, in my heart, like, this is something I can do. And again, it's part of the risk taking and things like that. It's not going to be easy. Like I remember, but I think when you finally walk into that, there's this kind of what we're talking about, like there's contentment, there's this peace. Like I remember for me finding your niche, man, I remember entering a Bible college. Right. I was doing the school thing. I was going to junior college, just kind of get my basics because I didn't know what I was going to do. I just wanted to, at that time, I was dumb, young, and naive. It's like, I just want to make a ton of money. Right.
Right.
Funny, the Lord had a different plan and probably sent me a job that doesn't make a lot of money. Right.
Right.
But I remember being in Bible college and I remember sitting with my Bible, my notebook, and my pen and sitting in class. And I just felt this kind of overwhelming sense of peace. Like, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
It's one of the weirdest, but like coolest feelings I've ever had. It's just like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I think when you can kind of walk into that space and that place, there's that excitement that starts welling up and kind of going in that makes you passionate and excited. And I think that's a secret for your finding your niche.
Yeah.
Not that you're going to succeed at it. Like you may find your niche and realize, okay, this is not the thing for me, or can't make it work, or you need to surround yourself with other people, or got to work at it and tinker at it. But you begin to realize this is kind of closer to what I feel like I need to do than
for sure. And for all listeners too, like I just want to make some very clear. This has nothing to do like in the vein of like me like not being on the show or anymore, thing like that. I don't make that
He's
very
quitting
clear.
today. I'm joking.
Yeah, quitting today. No, I mean, me and Sly are both going to be on it in different roles. I think Sly's going to be doing a lot of basketball stuff, some baseball stuff, and we'll be doing So let me back up here. Monday will be the first kind of branded roundtable. And we'll be doing that, so that'll kind of launch out. And guys, I mean, it's gonna be, we got our socials up, athletically declined on Instagram, and then it's athletic decline on Twitter, and athletically declined on Twitch as well. Yeah. So and the Discord and we'll be kind of cross populating, so we've got the links in there, so you guys are like, hey, how did you have a Discord or whatever community? Because like you want the sports stuff, like we got that Discord over there. It's going to have that as well. But again, Bad Dad, that's not to take anything away from what we're doing at Bad Dad, because it's completely two different things. Absolutely. Here, if you really want to hear like my sports takes and Tyler's sports takes together, don't worry. We're going to have some of that stuff on the podcast, Athletic Decline podcast, and different things like that. But we're here. We're still going to do some fun stuff. Like if you were excited about some of the sports stuff that we did, well, we're going to let you know. Go there. You're going to like the content there. You're going to like the dudes there. But we're also going to have some other fun stuff here. We're going to still stick to kind of some of the food stuff, TV show stuff. We got a little fun one, hopefully here in a bit, that we're going to record. A little short, a little kind of sweet, but I think it's going to be a good one that I think a lot of dads typically are passionate about. They may just kind of wait around the right crowd, but they're going to share. We're going to go ahead and dive in. We'll see how this goes. Right. No one may listen to us ever again after this, but I'm down. And so we're still going to produce a lot of good content here at the Bad Dad. Yeah, man. So again, I mean, guys, if you're not already following us, go follow us on BadDadPod on Instagram, on YouTube. Yep. Yeah. Throw some comments down there. And if we can ask a favor, so we've kind of moved away from the Patreon. So what we're going to really ask to really help us out, if you really like the Bad Dad, man, hit that like, give us a 5-star on iTunes. If you listen to Spotify, I don't know if you can like it, rate it, but do something like that. But if you could even do us a favor, hop out of those platforms, go to YouTube, man, just hit that like button. Yeah. Drop a comment saying, hey, good job, fellas, whatever. That really, like, I'm telling you, like that's going to be a huge blessing. And we hope that by you doing that,
that, it'll get this podcast in the hands of other guys, other individuals who may need to listen to a couple of dads just kind of sharing about their lives.
Yeah. And again, too, I know I talk about it a lot, but man, like the Discord, like I know like some people you say, man, like, I don't know, like I'm not really, I don't know what that is or whatever. Guys, just think about it as like a Facebook page that you're able to kind of talk and chat with other guys just like you.
It's like the best parts. So I'm new to this. So the reason why I don't talk about like I'm getting adjusted to it, but for guys like kind of older like me, right, that kind of new to this kind of Discord thing, it's the best parts of Facebook groups.
Yeah.
Like that's the best way I can describe it. If you can get all the best parts of Facebook groups and just kind of put it in one spot and add a couple more bells and whistles, that's what Discord is.
Yeah.
It's a Facebook group, which is the best thing of Facebook, I believe, and adds more bells and whistles like video chats from time to time and things like that. So, we'd love for you to jump on the Discord.
And for those of you like, hey, I don't want another like notification on here. I don't want to be my phone pinging off with people like talking in there. There's mutes and you can cancel, notifications, all that kind of stuff. So just for those people who I know there are some out there, like I'm not adding another notification because I hate those red marks on there.
Yeah.
You don't have to see them.
Yeah.
There is ways around it.
Perfect. Well, man, dude, that's been an awesome podcast. It's a great podcast.
Yeah.
And so listen, find our stuff here towards the end of the week, and hopefully you'll be pretty surprised on some good dad combos.
We are excited.
Yeah. All right, everybody.
Peace.